Well, thank you for having us
Absolutely.
here today.
Welcome. So I don't really know what you are all hoping to see, I guess. I just received an email if I would like you to come, and I said yes.
Yeah, so
I don't know.
what we have been doing today is that we started the morning with a county-wide ARPA panel. And so maybe what would make sense is for me to share the information with you about the opportunities for libraries that to improve your capital buildings that we have coming up. And then we can answer questions, but then I know that others may have things that they wanted to talk about as well, like broadband or public health, how that kind of ties in with libraries. So first off, your facility is really, really nice here in Swanton.
Thank you.
So
We're very lucky.
So was it recently renovated, or was it always this beautiful? Or
It was recently painted,
Okay.
but this half of the building was built in 1998, and the front half is more than 106 years old. It's been a library for 106 years, but what it was before that, I'm not really sure, but it was a building. And there's been no like structural renovations at all since 1998. But it was all just since I took over. I painted like everything pretty much, except if it's white, don't look at that because that hasn't been painted. But it is going to be painted hopefully this spring. But yeah, I've pretty much, and the entire like flow of the library was different when I took over like a year and a half ago, and I've moved every single book in this building and every piece of furniture in this building as well.
Well, it's a great facility, and when we came in, we could see lots of people were using it.
Yes.
And depending on, if it's been more than 20 years since you did much work, there may be projects that you have, and we can talk about those. But why don't Jeanette and I share what it is that the Department of Libraries is embarking on, and you may have heard about this already.
Did you do any successful?
Yes.
Yeah. Great. So I don't want to repeat information that you already know, but I think it would be good to just kind of frame
Absolutely.
it. So the Department of Libraries has 2 upcoming capital projects, grant fund opportunities. They're both with federal funding. The first of them is tied in with ARPA funding from the U.S. Department of Treasury. And we're actually in the process of getting approval for that. We haven't yet secured approval for that, but we've applied for that with the state and along with some other programs. There are 3 programs in this bucket of Treasury funding. And one of them has to do with bringing community spaces like libraries that provide a center for people to use high-speed internet for the purposes of work and for education and for telehealth. So a library that is providing those things, and almost every public library is providing those
Absolutely.
things in Vermont, really in response to ARPA, to the situation where libraries had to close because they didn't have adequate ventilation or because there wasn't an adequate amount of space for people to socially distance. This is really a reaction to that, just bearing in mind that for so many communities, especially here in Vermont with our rural communities, people don't have access to high-speed internet at home. So as many people in the country moved to working from home, going to school from home, and going to doctor's appointments from home, people in some communities here in our state just couldn't do that easily. And that the library, which is always providing free internet access and devices to use the internet, suddenly it became an even more important and more essential part of people's lives to telework and go to school from home and go to the doctors remotely. So this is just a way to sort of make communities more resilient to that type of public health emergency and to provide us a resource that isn't available. So our application hasn't been approved yet. We've been in dialogue with the U.S. Department of Treasury about the application. And we're very hopeful that we'll get approval for it soon. But the idea of it, that particular source of money, that $16.4 million, is really with the focus of high-speed internet for work, school, and telehealth. Really trying to ensure that libraries can provide that service, and looking at things like replacing HVAC systems to improve circulation of air and filtration of air, looking at things like building envelope problems, if you've got a gaping hole in the roof or water's coming through your windows, that's the longevity of your library building. It would be in trouble then. And we have so many older facilities here in Vermont, or kind of half and half, like the add-on libraries, like yours has a core that's historic and older, and then it has the newer space. And often we have been visiting libraries where the joint is the problem, and we see water infiltration. And so we really want to be sure, like, you don't have to close again if there were another public health emergency. That's really the goal, is to keep the facilities open and to ensure some longevity of the libraries. So thinking about that fund, our hope is we'll be able to support libraries potentially in increasing ADA access as well, because when we think about our community members who need to use the library, if they can't even get through the front door because of some of our old steps, like the internet's not really, if they can't get to the internet computer and that's what they need, it's not really accessible to them.
Right.
And a lot of libraries that haven't had renovation in a very long time, there's been no trigger to bring them up to the current minimum ADA standards. And so you could have a 100-year-old building and it's actually not out of compliance. There's just been, without the renovation, nothing has triggered the need to bring it up to speed.
Right.
So some libraries might have a bathroom, but it's not accessible. They might have a front door, but you can't get through it. And those kinds of things. We want the library to be open to every Vermonter. And we want everybody to be able to use the resources and to access the internet, which is like even more important now. So that's the first pot of money, the $16.4 million that we hope to have approval from Treasury for. But we also knew that the need for renovations exceeds the 16.4. We're pretty sure of that after talking with lots of libraries in the state. And Senator Leahy's office was able to help us secure $10 million for small and rural communities to support renovations of those facilities. And while that'll help with internet access in those communities, it's not tied to internet access as far as the reason for the renovations. So that's a little bit of a broader use with the pot of money there, but it's also it's a $10 million
Looking
funding
into
source.
that one, though, we don't qualify for that one. I think
Because you're
we're
not
too
rural.
big.
Yeah.
Just barely
So,
too
Yeah.
and that's a question we get from some communities is which pot of money do we qualify for? What do I need to know? And the department would really like to take that worry away from you. So what we're going to be doing is to have one unified application for both sources of funding, because we know it's really time consuming to fill out all of these grant applications. So we may ask a series of questions that don't seem to apply to you, and it's okay to say this doesn't apply to us.
Okay.
And to just say, you can give the information, but you're not going to probably qualify for a small rural community if you're in a more suburban setting and if you have a larger population. We're looking at the location of the facility itself probably for that separate funding source, and that's managed through the Housing and Urban Development, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. We're still learning a lot about that. We've gotten the award letter, but it's a pretty complicated process, so we're still there. They have a lot of webinars and we're going to all of them and we're taking notes, and then we'll have follow-up questions, and we're really learning about the funding source so that we can administer it well. And we're going to bring in 2 limited service staff members with grant administration for capital projects as their portfolio to help us, so it won't just be Jeanette and I who have library science backgrounds, and we're not construction managers, and it's going to be great to have some support to help us with that. And these grant monies that we have will support those positions, who will in turn support all of the community. But the idea is we'll do the one application in the fall, and that application is being built based on the information people shared in their needs assessment, so that we can kind of create buckets of money for different types of projects potentially, or just have an idea of what all of the needs are. We had a really good response to the needs assessment. I think we had 120 or so libraries of the 185 respond, which is great. And people's projects may or may not fit into this. A project like painting the inside of the walls at some libraries that are described as a need, that probably wouldn't fit into a capital project's fund, but it's good for us to know that the need is out there. You know, so it's good, some of the projects are, you know, it's really clearly a capital project. It's like we want to expand this building, we want to build a room for X, Y, or Z, and you know, we want to build a Zoom room in the library. Or you know, the roof has a giant hole in it, or the windows, like lots of rain is coming through them. So there are all different types of projects that need to be done, and some of them, the money that we have in the department that we're going to be administering is going to be perfect for those. And some of them we might actually refer people to other projects and other programs. We were visiting the library in Richford this morning, and there was a question about, well, you know, maybe there's some water coming into the basement, and maybe this is a good thing to talk to some of the folks in the state of Vermont who address, you know, floodplains and mitigating water concerns. So, you know, emergency management, the Department of Emergency Management, they might be good people to talk to. So you want to be sure your building is, the foundation is secure, right? And then there are other things like you think about water and cold air coming through windows or gaps in your building, and maybe that's something that if you're a municipal public library and it's a municipally owned building, well, maybe that qualifies for a building and general services municipal energy resilience program, or MERP. So we might see people's needs assessment and say, oh, over here or over there. There's even a library that we've heard from that doesn't have running water, and maybe that's a brownfield issue. So it's sort of, how do we refer these appropriately? So the needs assessment will help us to just understand the whole scheme of things, to help build out our program. But then we'll get your applications, and then we'll use 2 rubrics, one for each program, to kind of determine which ones you're eligible for. And then it's a competitive process, and we'll have to really look closely at the different programs and who they'll serve, and we want to really distribute the money throughout the state. And we do know that, you know, certain areas of the state have received a lot more of the ARPA dollars than other areas of the state. We know that Chittenden County has a lot more resources to go for the grants, and that's been playing out that way. So we're really mindful, the administration's just really mindful that we need to get the word out, and that's why we're here today and why we've been doing all of these ARPA panels. As much as we love seeing our colleagues, we also have just really been prioritizing all of these different Monday morning visits to different counties all around the state to try to get the word out about the opportunities, and that some of them kind of work together. They're sort of, you can cobble together funding from different spots, and so that's what we've been out and about talking to people about at the Department of Libraries. And I know Christine.
Well, yeah, I'll piggyback right off of that, because when we talk about threading all these funding sources together, you know, our job at the Vermont Community Broadband Board is, first of all, get everybody connected to fiber optic internet. Second, make it affordable. But most importantly, the third component is maximizing the positive social impact. And that is where the libraries come into play. You know, the upcoming program, the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program, equity is a big component of that. In our work with the National Telecommunications Information Administration, that they've really emphasized the importance of libraries being the trusted resource in the community. You know, Vermont has the highest per capita number of libraries in the country, so we're very fortunate, although they're struggling, right? So this is where I think we have a great opportunity, and we've been working together on this. We have an equity grant to put an equity plan together that we'll submit by October 1st. And we're looking to the libraries to be a key part of that. Some of the things you were talking about, health, you know, with the youth in the area and those kind of programs. You know, youth who are struggling, we talked a little about I had done some gender work up here. You know, they're not going to be comfortable having those conversations in their home, right? So we're looking at, there's 2 separate federal programs. One is we'll probably end up with about $10 million from the first program that we'll be able to allocate to grants to the libraries for these programs. And then there's a competitive grant program which we'll work with the libraries to apply for as well. And the goal being providing places for telehealth, teleeducation, and other programs and providing that resource would be a safe space for people. So even people interviewing for jobs, for example, they may don't want to be doing it at home with the screaming kids around and all that. They have that place where they can come. So I think that's another way as we put these programs together. This is really once in a generation, once in a multi-generation opportunity. So that's why we're all working together at the administration level to try to piece this together and really maximize the positive impact for Vermonters.
A huge need here is a private space to have those conversations. We've got this beautiful building. We've got community come here constantly. We're a very busy library, but we don't have any sort of private space. That's definitely something that my board and I have been talking about extensively, is creating a space where somebody could do a telehealth or could. We get a lot of DCF visits here too, and there's nowhere private to do that either. They're just
talking about that
in the middle of the building.
Yeah.
So things like that.
Family visitation, people, I think sometimes when I've been talking about the telehealth, I've kind of thought of it like, oh, it's a place to visit your doctor, but it's also a place to have to visit your mental health care provider, and to have a private spot to do that, and to have a computer that's dedicated there, because it's so hard to find a therapist now who will see you in person, and you may be assigned to a therapist who can only do telehealth, and how are you going to do that from your home with everybody else there, or in a home where you don't have those connectivity and computer equipment resources? So one thing that in your area is really nice, and you may have already visited and know that they have this, but when I was visiting the St. Albans Public Library a while back, I saw that they had some dedicated booths there, and they had, desks inside, and you could sit down and you could use that for any variety of purposes. And we've been sort of calling those Zoom rooms, but a 1 or 2 person space where you can do that. You think you might do couples counseling, you might do visitation with a parent and a kid in a space, and they just want to talk privately. They don't want the whole community to hear their business. So, soundproof, connected, places
accessible too.
Accessible, yeah, that's important as well, that they be ADA accessible, because sometimes they're not.
No.
It's, the ready-made booth might have a counter height
Or you can't roll up to
desk,
them.
and you can't roll up to it. So, really thinking about what is it that you're trying to provide. And in a library that has, even in a room of this size, sometimes somebody could say, well, we want to carve out a space for that, and we're willing to change what we have there now to prioritize this new functionality that's needed today that wasn't needed 20 years ago. We didn't think about that in the last renovation, so this is what we want to do. And so, some libraries might be looking to the department to fund something huge like this giant new renovation, and some libraries might be saying, well, our library building, the bones are pretty good, we want to put in these booths, and maybe we want more than one, because once somebody's using it, then more people might want it, and so we want to do 3 booths here. Could we do that? And talking locally, starting to talk about that with the community, raise support for the idea, get some quotes about what that would look like, and would it be something you build, would they be the booths that you put in place, and then applying for the grants with that information. We're really trying to get people having those conversations now, and that was one of the real, there are things we'll get out of the needs assessment, but locally, where our hope was you'll kind of jumpstart the process of talking about the need locally before the actual application. Some folks have been saying, well, I filled out the needs assessment, and why can't that just be the grant application? Well, it's because your conversations in your community might be further progressed, but a lot of them aren't yet. So, kind of getting those kicks started, giving some of the libraries that have high need but didn't have an idea that there were any resources, and giving them time to develop something while we bring on some staff, we hope, to help administer the program and build the grant application. Then we can move into the grant application process, just to try to equalize it a little bit more, because the wealthier communities, or the communities that have had a really burning need for longer, probably have a lot more plans in place. So we just really wanted to give people some time to get that going. And then some communities are really trying to understand their relationship to their library buildings. Who owns it? Is it a municipal building? Is it owned by the incorporated public library? Because we have both types of libraries here. And the funding streams available are different for municipal versus incorporated. Like with the Department of Libraries, we're going to support both municipal and incorporated public libraries with these grants. But some of the, like the MERP funding is Municipal Energy Resilience Program. It's for municipal buildings. It's not for buildings owned by an incorporated public library. So that's a little different. So there may be some programs that sound cool, but maybe don't work for some libraries. But there may be other funding streams that work better for an incorporated library than for a municipal.
Yeah.
Remind me which one?
We're municipal, yeah.
Okay.
We just, in, I guess a year and a half ago, like right as I was coming in as director, we settled an MOU with our town, and so like we're responsible for anything inside the building, and they're responsible for outside and like plumbing and electricity issues and things like that.
That's great to hear that you've done that. It's something we encourage people to do, is to really clarify what the roles are. And sometimes in a small community that might just be a piece of paper that's just very loose, and it's an agreement that people have, like a very informal MOU. And in some cases it's more like a contract that's written up, and it really
That's what
depends
we have,
on
a more formal, done up by lawyers, real.
So it sounds like you are in a good position then, because you understand your relationship to the building.
Yes.
The library's responsibility for costs, the town's responsibility for costs. And sometimes we've been getting questions like, well, if it's the town's building, should they fill this out? Really, it's between you all in your community, how you do it. Some towns may say, yeah, we'd really like the library director to handle this. And they may write a letter that says that you're authorized to do this for the whole building, both the inside and the outside stuff, for this funding source. And some municipalities may say, no, we really want to do it ourselves, it's our building. And they may take on that burden. So we really we'll need to build out our process to accommodate both of those situations, and also the situations where it doesn't come from the library trustees, the director of the board, or does it come from the library director? Like, who is it that is initiating these things and making sure they have the authority to do it? It's a little bit interesting to hear that there are some libraries in the state that everything has been very kind of positive and working well, but some of those roles are unclear. So this gives them time too to sort that out and to figure out, well, yeah, the town's always painted the building. Well, it's because it's theirs. Or or they do this, this, and this, but we're not sure who actually owns the building. It's like this gives them a little time to figure it out. But we know we have a lot of older buildings, 80 years old, 100 years old, 100 plus years old. And sometimes towns don't have the sufficient funds to do maintenance, or sometimes, even with the best maintenance, you sometimes have an unexpected thing happen, or a roof happens to be at the end of its life at this opportune time. There are all different scenarios.
Is any of the funding able to be used like retroactively? Like we've just had a new roof put on. We're in the next couple weeks, we're getting a new furnace system.
It's possible that some of the treasury funding could be retroactive, which is sort of strange to even say because we don't have approval for it yet. But when you look at the treasury guidance for the capital projects fund, it does have a date that's sometime last year.
Okay.
So we need to get some clarity on that so that we're sure that we're administering it properly and granting it properly. The treasury money and the HUD money have two different sets of requirements. And in some situations, there will be environmental impact reports that are necessary. In some situations, those might not be necessary. For something like an HVAC, my guess is you don't need to do an environmental impact assessment because it's an as-built thing and you're picking up the guts and putting in new guts. Not such a big deal. But my expertise is in libraries, not in federal capital projects. So I want to be sure, and HUD, and we want to be sure with these funders, with the federal funding, there are strings attached. There are requirements of the programs. So we are working to understand those right now, and if it's possible to do that sort of thing, then we will make that opportunity available to folks to apply for it. We don't want to add any extra burdens. We just want to kind of make the sources available. And the treasury money is the bigger bucket of money, $16.4 million, and it has to be granted out more quickly. So if it's possible to kind of reimburse for some things that were already in flight in a high need community, well then maybe that's a good way to make sure that the work actually gets done, because there are a lot of building projects right now. And something we've been hearing at the different ARPA panels around the state is, how can everybody build at once? There are only so many contractors. Mm-hmm. So sometimes a project that's already in progress, it might turn out that that's one, if we're able to, that would make sense because you've already got the contractor, you've already got the plans, and it's helping Vermonters to get to the library. And we know a lot of communities are supporting neighboring communities with their libraries too. So, you know, it's like, that's something to be aware of as well. Like if we help a library in a county, other people are likely going to be able to benefit from that as well. You know, we may not be able to give every Franklin County library funding,
Right.
but we'll hopefully be able to spread the money throughout the state.
Is the MERP money, is that reimbursable? Because a new furnace, who knows if that falls under.
I know somebody from our town level, I'll have to double check into it, but somebody from our town level was talking about
Okay.
that pot of money for
Yeah.
that project.
Yeah.
And we also need to, like I said before, the like envelope in between the two buildings is
Yeah, which I'm sure you'll
Crazy.
show us.
Yeah.
right?
so they're working on
Yeah.
The seams
pot of money
between
for that
the
as well.
buildings are always, everyone has these good ideas of how to add on to historic libraries, and I've seen so many failed joints
Mhm.
and so
Tunnel.
many problematic attachments. So it's because you have to be so careful with the historic facade that you're connecting to, and it's almost like,
it's so funny, all of our problems are on this new side of the building.
Yeah.
Like the old side is great, doing great. This new side, not
well,
so
a
much.
lot of times the
Yeah.
joint is like a problem zone, and then the water gets into the new part, is my
Yeah.
sense.
And it's still settling and all that stuff.
I can't
It's
tell you
not
how
like
many.
Like we're not getting water into the building.
okay.
Our problem is we're getting heat out of the building that's causing these melts that
Oh,
cause
I spent, yeah.
huge
yeah.
ice sheets to come at our door.
Wow.
Well, and that might be an insulation, like a MERP.
Right,
Type thing
yeah.
as
That's one of
well.
the things
Yeah.
that the
Yeah.
envelope is what they're
Yeah.
hoping that
Yeah.
MERP will help with.
That would be great.
Yeah, and so support from the town to include the library as part of a MERP application for assessment would be really great.
Yeah.
And there are, I mean, Jennifer Fitch from BGS is much more knowledgeable, and her team much more knowledgeable about this, but we've heard her now many times talk about it. So my sense is that there are two different levels of assessment that towns can go for. There's one that's kind of, you know, the walkthrough, and then there's one where the town provides a lot of information, and it gives your project access to more detailed resources and to more funding as well. So funding for that type of assessment. So definitely be sure that your group here at the library, that you're working with your municipal leaders, because if they bring people out to look at your other municipal buildings, this building can often be rolled into that assessment visit that's being done.
Okay, I'll make sure that I mention that again.
Yeah, and if they don't have other buildings planned, they could still help with the ask. And I think that the process for those is that the town connects with the local regional development council, and that the regional planning people are working with buildings and general services. But if you have any need of like we leave here today and then you think, what were you talking about? Just reach out and we'll put you in touch with BGS, and then they can loop you back. If somebody reaches out to BGS, and they should go through like the Northwest planning folks, then they'll connect you with the right people. Because there's a lot going on right now, with a lot of different opportunities, but it is a little bit confusing. And even for us, it's a little bit confusing because it's been great to hear from each other what's going on. It's been a really nice model, and I hope it's something that with opportunities like this will continue, because it's just been really a great way, selfishly, for me to learn about all of the different opportunities so I can try to share with different libraries. So you can always contact Jeanette and Tom McMurdo and I if you have
find us.
questions. And we're not expert in the other people's programs, but we've heard their spiel enough that we can probably get you to somebody who can help.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Did you have other questions or other thoughts? Or?
No, I'd love to show you my building.
Did you have anything?
I have a question about the telehealth. Is the ideal or the goal for there to be some more privacy? Is that something that, with this funding, that hopefully that's what's going to be offered?
I think that it's not a requirement of the funding from what we can understand of the Treasury funding, but it's certainly a great benefit that can come from it. Like, we're encouraging libraries to think creatively about their spaces. For example, if there's a meeting room that's for lots and lots of people and it's not in use, well, could that be a place people do visitation, or could that be a place where, especially if it has a door that closes, that somebody could reserve the space for a medical visit? So even if they're not building something, that's a service that I think more and more libraries are interested in providing, and that we're seeing that happening more. And that's definitely an acceptable use of this type of funding.
Okay.
But I think the bare minimum is like providing internet access so that people can use a computer in the space and get, send emails, do work. Thinking about when you're in class, for example, a lot of times if you're taking an asynchronous class, you're listening and you're typing and you're submitting assignments and you're interacting in a chat universe. That could be done even if a library didn't have a dedicated room where you went to school. And in the same way, like, I could log on and use my chart and communicate with my doctor, even if I'm not able to do like a full mental health visit with my psychologist. But certainly those projects that have those aspects are definitely kind of going beyond the bare minimum, and we like to see that.
Yeah, and those funds, I think that's where Catherine's team is on our equity advisory team. And that's where I think we can piece it all together, because the funds for the broadband, the equity program, support those kind of things. So it's kind of like where to get your money to go further, we'll put our heads together to say, what can we fund out of this infrastructure program for the libraries to say? Because devices and training and education is all part of it. This is, as I visited the libraries, as I mentioned, I just started visiting the libraries the last meeting, and I realized, there's a need for, it seems natural that this would also fund that same thing.
And Kristen, your funding supports incorporated and municipal libraries, right?
Yes, we get, the beauty is, and I just learned this a couple weeks ago, we went to the last meeting in Las Vegas, and we learned that we get to identify the community anchor institutions.
Oh, okay, so there's flexibility there.
Yeah, so we're looking at, one of the states, I'm not sure we'll do this, we want to focus on libraries and schools, but one of the states actually went so far as to define their charging station as community anchor institutions, because there's a lot more flexibility in the funding when you identify it as a community anchor institution. This one's libraries are obvious, so there's no problem with that.
That's what we like to hear.
Yeah.
Well, thinking about, and you said this morning at our library visit, but the library is really, I don't want to insult the other folks, but it's the most trusted place in town. I mean, studies show people really trust their librarians and really trust that there's privacy at the library, that there's access to information based on your interests and what you need to know. And that's a thing that we really care about in Vermont's libraries. And I think that Vermonters know that, and know that if they need something and they're in a bind, there's a helper. There's somebody there to help them get the information they need and to use those resources. So building on that, and then building on these connections, some of our public libraries are, in addition to providing core library services, they're doing things like welcoming folks from the health department in and having office hours, because that's where community can find the person, and it's an easy space to get to, and that way the Department of Health doesn't need an office in every single town in Vermont, but can still go to the library. And the same with labor.
Right.
I was visiting the Northeast Kingdom over the summer last summer, and I kept showing up, and there was like somebody from Department of Labor, like just doing their office hours, and that was their plan. They do it every week, once a week. They come out. They don't just sit in their own building or
Yeah.
sit at their home doing telehealth. They do the visits in the library, and
That's
it's like,
been a huge discussion here in this community. The rec person is also a town selects person, and she and I have been talking a lot about having a dedicated space here or there to have people from the health department, from NCSS come and be able to meet with people, all different.
and a lot of
But
those
we lack
conversations.
a private
Yeah,
space.
a lot of those
Yeah.
conversations, like a small meeting room
Yeah.
that could be leveraged for that would be great. And that same meeting room might work on Sunday afternoon or Saturday morning for a parent to do visitation with their child. So sometimes that small conversational space that's private, because you don't necessarily want everybody in on the conversation you're having with a public health department staff member or with the child. I mean, there's a lot of sensitivity and a lot of privacy, and you know, we're Vermonters. We kind of like our stuff to be our stuff, and you know, we're in a public space, but could we have a little more privacy, please? I think that those types of spaces are wanted by people, and you know, you're not going to want to go to a coffee shop for that conversation if your town
Right.
even has one. So those are things that people are very interested in. And just thinking about something else, we were talking on the drive up here about how I rent in Montpelier, and there's a lawn outside, but it's my landlord's lawn, and I don't get to go out there. And we were in Tom McMurdo and I were in Marshfield, and they were showing us how they want to do an outside porch area. People just want some outside space where they can hang out and sit there, and there's Wi-Fi, and that's built onto the library, and it's not, you know, just pieces of furniture somebody could carry away, then that could qualify for a capital project. So a nice little front porch type thing that's open.
Expand internet. Yeah.
Expands the ability to use the internet. It's fresh air. You might be able to use that same space for outdoor programming, like a poetry program, or maybe a book group, or maybe even story time outside. So that type of space too is another one that I think could be really good for people. And when it's less used, the private conversation with somebody, like the one-on-one. You can imagine if the person from public health is sitting out there you're sitting out there, you're having a nice, beautiful outside conversation, and there aren't too many other people around. So libraries are going to be creative about how they do it, what works for them.
Well, and today we were at Richford Library there, A. Brown, right?
I think so.
Yeah. And we were talking about spaces, private spaces, and they looked around and they identified 3 possible rooms that they could just clean out. They were a closet, a staff kitchen, or something, but they
A
just kind of looked around
storage
and
area,
said,
right?
"Oh wait, we have these areas. Why don't we just clean them up and equip them with good connection and paint the walls so it's a little bit more pleasant?" So right there in the moment, I think they walked away with some real ideas, just talking to each other as well. So those are the spaces. So when you're out talking about telehealth, you know, encourage folks to kind of look around their space that they already have and say, well, do you really need this as your processing area? Could you maybe process somewhere else where you don't need the privacy, and you take this room and turn it into a really nice private and soundproof telehealth space?
Right.
That could also second as a counseling room for labor or whatever. Yeah. So I think that's where, when all of us travel around, we can help folks kind of reimagine their spaces, because they hadn't thought of it this morning, and we were just talking,
Yeah.
and all of them sort of at once said, oh wait, we have space.
And it's kind of nice too, because we know that this is a really great opportunity. We have millions of dollars to allocate to people, but we also know that it's probably not going to be enough money.
Yeah.
And so with 185 libraries and $26.4 million, I don't think any of us have to be that good at math to realize it's not enough money for everybody for significant, meaningful projects. But through the conversations, will a seed be planted that grows into something that might actually be very low cost and not need that much money, and something you could do very low cost and you could do it tomorrow or in a year? Or do some of these projects kind of get people thinking and say, okay, well, really like that new library that they built in South Hero, that one's pretty cool. What if our library, you know, like in a small town that doesn't have a modern building. What if we thought about moving to that, to a bigger space? So I think sometimes when we see others raise the funds and we know it becomes possible, if we decide to prioritize the library service as a community, it's going to help. So even those communities that don't end up receiving this particular grant money, it still is helping us all move forward and envision spaces and implement spaces that are going to help the community down the road. Because we are really good in libraries at like looking at somebody else's cool thing and saying, well, how can I do that on a budget? So I think that's going to help a lot to just get these.
And another thing
ideas.
we're talking about on the equity side is, and the libraries can play a very, when you think about what you do, we talk about a learn to discern program. The idea that because we're all on the internet, you know, as you said this morning, I get on Facebook and my uncle Sam's an expert on, you know, on psoriasis, so I take his advice to put, you know, like mobile one on my face, right? So those are the kind of things that, you know, if you think about today, what parents are highly concerned about is how do you teach all this information and all this misinformation? How do you sort fact from fiction? How do you avoid getting scammed if you're an elderly, you know, well, I guess anybody could get scammed, right? And so that's another important piece that we know will get integrated this program with the libraries.
Yeah, so thinking about in the long term that we're trying to increase connectivity, but also the meaning. It's not just, oh, well, we connected everybody, but they can use this resource and it will actually help them and not hurt society in general or them.
Yeah.
You know, it's really, we need to do a lot of work there. And I think in the library community, there's this desire for more support with learning to teach, like train the trainer type classes, for example. We hear a lot about that. And I think that's where some of this digital equity funding might be really impactful, not just saying, oh, we'll put an expert at that library, but we'll teach, it's like teach a man to fish or whatever. We're going to teach the librarians to implement this program, and then it'll kind of proliferate all around the state and people will be able to access that. So I think that's something we're really excited about too, supporting people and supporting their communities and having kind of different looks to how that is in your local community based on who you serve and what they need. And yeah. I'm excited to see your space.
Yeah, me too.
Are we ready?
Yeah.
That was a beautiful library. I was walked in and took my breath away.
I can't get out.
I'll just start where we are, I guess. So this is our adult nonfiction section. This is where all of our computers are. There's only 4.
Where are they? They're hiding.
There's one here, one
Okay.
here, and then 2 there.
It's really nice how it's spread out there so people have a lot of privacy.
Yes.
And that they're back, nobody's like forced to look at your computer. And
Yes.
that's good layout.
We've tried
Yeah.
it a few different ways. We did have this computer over here for a while, but we needed a lot of furniture. We needed to spread things out a little. And also there's an ongoing youth art show right now, but they've like started taking it down, so it looks a little disorganized right now.
How many different types of furniture you have too.
Yeah.
It's really great.
It's all, a hodgepodge, but it's good.
That's what you're
Yeah.
supposed to go for now, so that you have different size seats for different people and different bodies, so we don't just give one. So your hodgepodge is great.
Is this utilized a great deal?
It is, yeah. I mean, I'm shocked there are not people on the computers right now because they're
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 so it's highly
usually
utilized.
packed in
Okay.
here. Yeah.
They got skipped off.
Probably.
Yeah.
Looking all efficient.
Yeah.
And then there's also like some book clubs that meet up here, and we just recently started doing the puzzle thing, trying to get people to hang out up here more. But primarily the computers for this room.
I think I found my favorite art. I've decided this is a monster. I don't know what that is, but
This here pink and purple one is my daughter's. It's not an eyeball.
Oh, that's also my favorite.
I was just gonna say.
So this area is mostly a staff desk area. This is Jody.
Well, here's wow, look at the tweets though.
Yeah, we did have it as like a little private space. We used to, so our youth room used to be up here in this room, and then we had like a little like teen hangout. But it turned bad, and we took that away because it was not good to not have them supervised.
Yeah, yeah.
A little bathroom here.
Is this where you're entering the old building?
This is the old building. Okay. Actually, from the wood over is the old building.
Okay.
We have a little kitchen. There's spawns in the park, they're not there yet though. They come in Memorial Day. Yeah. Yeah. We have a little kitchen over here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good. We can leave.
Oh, you're okay. We do some programming up here. Is there what? Oh yeah, it's storage, and that's also where all of our HVAC stuff is, which is a problem.
The bat problem?
No.
Oh, bad problem. Oh,
Just
okay.
problem.
Okay.
Very dated kitchen. We'd love to do some upgrades in here. We do have a lot of programming that uses this space. And then, so this room is, this is one of the newest paint jobs we get. There are little white things on the wall because the arch is coming down. But this room is basically used as like a senior center. We have seniors in here like 4 days a week now. They do craft projects, they have, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Bone Builders, but they meet here twice a week. And then there's also a third workout day that's senior Zumba, that's what they do.
So you move everything aside and then
Yeah, we push all the tables out of the way.
dance floor.
Yes. And then this is where our like projector is. We do all of our like big presentations in this room. We do family movie night in this room. We do things like that. And we also, this like curtain area we use for like, we've had like an open mic night and poetry slam, things like that. Yeah. And this room, we do a big Harry Potter night every year, and this is the Great Hall. We transform it completely, and it's fantastic. It's the best night of the year.
That's so cool.
Are you a Harry Potter fan?
Not a huge one. I mean, I like it, but I don't know. The children, they always know more than the grown-ups.
Yeah, they
Well,
do. They will
just say do
school us
anyway.
all.
Yeah.
This is a little closet.
Men at library.
Staircase. This is our leaking roof. That's it's been repaired, so now it's just inside cosmetic things to be fixed.
Yeah.
I'll let you go.
Okay, good luck. Good luck to you. Thanks for thinking of us.
Alright, so this is our youth room. We have our YA, juvenile fiction, juvenile nonfiction picture books. This room is actually in the next 2 weeks getting a little facelift. We're getting a glass partition put in here. And so that'll make this a nice, quieter space for everyone else.
That's right.
Yeah. Nice
Very nice, yeah.
sofas, those.
ARPA.
ARPA?
ARPA money paid
Okay,
for
I'm
those
taking a
sofas.
picture. Because I'm about.
money or other?
Oh, really? Okay, because I'm about to report on ARPA. So
there you
I'm
go.
going to take a picture.
Yeah.
I should have brought you some decals to stick like somewhere on the side, telling people that they're funded that way. Okay.
What size are the youth groups primarily that?
We have, it ranges really. We have a really dedicated story time group that is like 20-ish people a week. It varies a little bit.
Wow.
We also have a very dedicated play group that meets on Wednesdays, and that's usually around like 10 families, 10 people. But again, that one varies. Sometimes it's a lot more. Sometimes it's like only 2 people. I don't know what makes it such a variety, but it is. We also have teen night that we do here, and that was a lot bigger, and the like winter kind of killed it down a little bit, but we had 60 kids coming here every month. for teen night. It
That
was
is great.
crazy. It was so great, but it was wild in here.
Hence the glass.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely.
That's great though. They need more spaces in their communities where they can go and gather and feel safe.
Yeah.
That they belong. Yeah.
We have such a great group of teens. We also do a homeschool group here, which has, I don't know, maybe 5 families, 6 families that meet here. I'm trying to think of what other. We have a lot going on. We have different craft things and different, just open story time playing and things like that.
It's a great space.
This is a great space.
Yeah, it really is. The mural is really great.
The
Thank you.
puppets, what are
Puppets, handmade puppets.
Wow.
The previous director and his fiance made them.
Has he gone on to be a puppeteer? What?
No. He works at a library in New York City now.
So is
Should
this
be
another
puppeteer.
space
Mostly it was
for?
her actually, but
Is this another space? Is this for staff?
this
or
is staff. This is our
Okay.
youth librarian desk. In this room, like I said, we're getting the partition and we're moving a lot of the furniture, so this room's gonna look totally different. It's like 3 weeks, but still the same basic feel, I guess.
If you can send pictures when it's redone with the ARPA furniture, that would be great.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Then over here, our circulation desk, and then behind is like our prep area where we get all of our folks ready. Vestibule, our elevator, which is one of the things that
Needs a little help.
we call it the elevator of doom, if that
Oh.
says anything about it.
Is it how old?
It was put in when the addition was put in, so it's about 30 years old. This is our like new books. That's my office, another bathroom, and then this is all adult fiction. This side of the building, for the old part, this is the floor that needs the most work. There's like chipping plaster and things like that. This room, also hopefully in the next 2 or 3 weeks, is gonna have some repairs and some paint done. Which is, there's like paint swatches everywhere right now too. This is Vera Klein. We have a trust from Vera.
Was she a nurse? It looks like it.
It does look like it is that.
Yeah.
What color are you going with over there?
So we've decided on, it's a long process. We've decided on this light green here. It's the same color that's upstairs, and we thought it would just kind of flow better. Yeah.
With all the dark wood, that's a good choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're afraid of it being too dark. We really like, the staff and I really like this, but we're afraid that the community would not respond so well to that.
Yeah.
So we're like, well, we'll play it a little more safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And these are storage closets. This is like just a little breezeway area with the Swanton marble. It's all the red marble from right here in Swanton.
Oh, wow.
And our front steps are the Swanton marble as well.
No, very nice.
I didn't know that was a
I'm
thing.
touching Swanton marble.
Yeah, they had a marble mill, right?
Yeah.
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 Gorgeous, yeah.
Beautiful.
This area is a very interesting place geologically. I feel like the islands have, like this whole part, like when it
Yeah.
starts, it's like when Pangea was all together, like we were like rubbing against Africa, like it's very,
Yeah.
it's true, like the geological record is interesting. I'm wondering like, is there like Swanton
My
marble?
understanding is there's only 2 places in the world that have this red marble. Swanton is one of them. I can't remember what the other one is.
It's really cool. Now I'm curious about red
Pink.
marble.
Very great.
This is just
That's
the
light.
other side of the adult fiction area. Got a little herb garden here we got with some grant money.
Oh, fun.
Italian and German books.
I know, it's like they know we're coming.
Our section. Nice.
Is this little project community led as well, or are you guys?
Yeah, no, it's youth led. needs some love, but we're hoping that in a few weeks we'll have like a big planting day and the kids can take a plant home and then we'll fill this with plants as well.
Oh, fun. I love that.
We've done one of those already, but the draining in that was off, so like all our plants died, so we're gonna try it again with better draining.
Yeah.
And we have like our audiobooks and our graphic novels for adults here, and then our large print here.
Do you do your own or do you use Able Library?
We use Able. We
Yeah.
do both.
Both, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
These like front facing ones are all from Able, and then the rest is all our collection.
Yeah. Great.
And I try and get like one more large print for our collection a month too.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice to see our Eagle books in the wild.
Yeah. Well, we've changed up our model a little bit so that we're now leasing books. So hopefully we have newer titles than we did. That was always kind of a problem. So yeah.
Ooh, basement. I like the basements.
Can I have this photo society key?
I do.
Please.
Usually such interesting little spaces.
Nice to see you too. I've
Sometimes.
missed you all.
Sometimes
Yes,
you're like,
we
oh
missed
no. You could just smell the no.
We were in one recently, that was a no smell. It's like very wet.
Yeah.
They were fixing it, but it was very wet.
Additional water damage from the road.
Wow.
Jeez.
So it came all the way down.
All the way down the wall.
And that's from the ice dams you said from the
Yeah, yep.
the addition. Yeah.
And I think there's a knitting group meeting in
Oh,
here, but
okay,
this
we'll
is the
be-
room we want to do the most work on, so I really want to make sure.
Yes.
that you see this.
Yeah. Look at this.
Is our community room, which is eventually gonna be a bigger space. We've got like a 3D printer and a Cricut and some other things. What we want to do is we want to put where this piece comes down, divide that into 2 or 3 rooms and have a private room there and also like a classroom kind of area. So we have a bunch of like girls who code and things like that, opportunities that are coming up, and we'd like to have like a dedicated space for that. On this side.
With your maker space, are you looking at ventilation too? Because sometimes that runs into
Yeah.
some of the making equipment.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
kind of,
The glue and the
depending on what you get, it can be
materials.
pretty, can impact the air quality a little
Yeah.
bit. So it's nice that you're straight to the outdoors.
And we also want to put some sinks and stuff in this room for
That's really great.
that same purpose. I'm sorry. This is our bathroom that's chronically out of order. This is like a little storage room. It also has like a little sink. And this used to be our maker space, but we've outgrown it.
Yeah.
This room. This is one of our furnaces as well, and just like our cleaning supplies. This room. So the Historical Society here in Swanton has their own building, but they also use this room for their like meetings and things. But our eventual hope is to get their stuff back to their building and to be able to use our own space.
Yeah. Especially since they have.
Yeah, don't put the part of
Right. This is a big space.
No, they know. They know that this has been a discussion for a while.
Even the chairs here seem historic. These folding chairs.
Yeah. A lot of cool stuff in this room.
Yeah.
But this room also has like a lot of water damage issues. So this room here, I'll show you this too. This is where the water damage comes from.
Is it still ongoing, the water damage?
Yep.
Yeah.
Is it winter or all season?
All season.
Rain.
It comes in right behind these panels and pours down the wall. In this fun room.
Oh, yeah.
And so the ground here is very wet, and so our problem with the elevator is that it's built on like a natural spring, and we always water in the base of our elevator. We have like some sump pumps and things. Yep. So we have some sump pumps and things that we're working on, and we're currently trying to get a new elevator contract, because another piece of our problem is that when we call to get our elevator service, they never come.
There aren't that many people. This has been one of the conversations on the
I'm sure it
email.
has.
it's like sometimes, I sometimes feel like the elevator contractors just like to collect the contracts and they don't have the.
And they make so much money when they come here. You'd think they'd want to come here.
They must not have enough workers.
They don't. I've heard the one we have specifically. It's my understanding that there's only 2 of them in the entire state, and I think they might serve Vermont and New Hampshire. And there's only 2 service people for that space. So
Yeah.
it's very frustrating. Me though. Yeah. I feel for them. I really
bet.
do. But
Yeah, that would be nice.
I'm working hard on that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and you wanna be,
Such a cool space though.
It is cool in here. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's open. They've part of our discussion in removing them has been that they don't really use this space. They don't let people come in. And so we're like, why do you need to have this space if no one can see what you're doing? So they have now started doing office hours
oh, that's
on
nice.
Saturday. So it is open to the public on Saturdays, most Saturdays when they can get a volunteer because they're all volunteer run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's been nice to have that open.
And in the spirit of the public library.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
You know, there's this.
Oh, yeah, so much. Absolutely. Thank you.
It's beautiful library.
Thank you.
And it has.
You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Very